I want to start this video by thanking you guys for 1,000 subscribers on the channel. It's kind of a dream come true. I started this podcast over a year ago, and we're here now with immense success. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, but we still have business to take care of. It is week 9. We need some of these waiver wire gems to help us en route to our fantasy championships. So if you do enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and again, we drop 4 videos a week. We don't really miss days around here. Kicking off here with the Fantasy Player of the Week, we're going to start with CeeDee Lamb. 12 receptions, 160 yards, 41 fantasy points, of course, the number 1 wide receiver on the week. We've been waiting for this week from CeeDee Lamb, and again, these graphics were made before Monday night, so maybe you can argue a Jahmyr Gibbs here. Regardless, CeeDee Lamb, again, we've been waiting on this game, and he finally gave it to us against a, depleted Rams defense. So shout out to CeeDee Lamb, but some honorable mentions. Again, this was made before Monday night, but Joe Burrow had a really good day. Gus Edwards, of course, a 3-touchdown day. A little typo there from my part. DeAndre Hopkins had a pretty good day as he continues to make subpar quarterbacks look like good quarterbacks. And A.J. Brown, I mean, this dude cannot be stopped, whether it was one hand, two hand, double covered, single covered, triple covered. A.J. Brown was making a play. So those are some honorable mentions. Kicking off here at the running back position, we're going to start with 2 very obvious ones. Tyjae Spears and Darrell Henderson. Tyjae Spears, on one hand, he's the backup for Derrick Henry. Of course, Derrick Henry was not traded at the deadline. However, Tyjae Spears remains to be the backup, and if Will Levis is the real deal, and this offense can be a high-powered passing offense, Tyjae Spears is the receiving back there in Tennessee. His production might only go up as we get closer to the second half of the season into our fantasy playoffs. Darrell Henderson, on the other hand, him and Royce Freeman, they're 2 backs that split the work there in Los Angeles, of course, for the next 4 to 5 weeks. This is a guy that if you can trade him in fantasy right now, I would do that. But for now, if you need a running back for the next couple of weeks, Royce Freeman or Darrell Henderson, I'm sure could be solid starts, 8 to 10 points on any given week. It really just depends on who finds the end zone. Zach Charbonnet, this is a guy that is getting more and more work coming back off of his injury. Of course, he actually had more snaps last week than Kenneth Walker against the Browns. It could just be the tough matchup, and Zach Charbonnet brings a little bit more passing upside. Regardless, Zach Charbonnet is a guy that, like Tyjae Spears, for one, if anything happens to the starter, they're an instant pickup. But for 2, this is a guy that is going to get work regardless of if the starter's there or not. In this case, it's Kenneth Walker. Charbonnet should get a lot of catches for the remainder of the season. But the guy I want to dive more into, and is he the number 1 pickup on the week? I wouldn't say that at the running back position, but I still want to give him his flowers. Leonard Fournette, of course, recently signed a deal with the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are not okay, and they're not happy with Latavius Murray this year. Latavius Murray's been doing okay, right? He's been okay. Of course, they like James Cook. But when it comes down to the goal line, they don't want to jeopardize Josh Allen, and they want to preserve his body for the playoff run. And that's why you see Latavius Murray getting a lot of goal line work. But now they have a better back. They brought in Leonard Fournette, and this is what that guy is known for. A big powerhouse bruising back out of LSU. And of course, he had some stops here in the NFL. But now he's in Buffalo, a team that is not going to use him much outside of the red zone. But inside the red zone, he can rack up a lot of points, and what we know in the NFL is that could pile up very quickly. A guy like Jamal Williams, for example, last year, didn't do much outside of the red zone for Detroit. But when it came into that red zone and they didn't want to jeopardize their quarterback, they gave the ball to Jamal Williams, and he ended up with 18 touchdowns. Again, don't expect that from Leonard Fournette, but I still think he could be a very solid pickup for the remainder of the season. Definitely, at least spend about 10% of your fab on Leonard Fournette, just for the upside that he has, because, again, if anything happens to James Cook, Leonard Fournette is the number 1 running back in maybe the best offense in the NFL. Moving over to quarterbacks, we're going to start here with a pretty easy one. Sam Howell, again, owned in less than 50% of leagues. Don't need to talk about him much. He's been very solid all but 1 week this year against the Bills defense. So, again, it doesn't matter. He's pretty much matchup proof is the point I'm getting at. Sam Howell, this offense might even be better going forward. Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, Tyson Bagent. These are 3 very solid options. Derek Carr is finally, maybe turning the page. Maybe he's actually startable and, ownable in fantasy leagues. Of course, that is up for debate, but Baker's been okay. Derek Carr's been okay. And, again, Tyson Bagent is the starter for now in Chicago in an offense that's going to need to pass the ball a lot. But Will Levis, I'm going to dive into it a little bit here as you're going to see his first career touchdown pass on your screen to D-Hop. Of course, if it was an OPI there from D-Hop, that's up for debate. But Will Levis, he did look really good. He looks like a young Russell Wilson with how he throws those balls 58 yards in the sky. But it was accurate. And that was the question coming into the NFL for Will Levis is we know he has the arm strength. We know he has that cannon. But can he be accurate? And he was, at least the majority of the time in his first career start. My only worry for Will Levis going forward is that now that teams have tape on him, is his production going to slow down? Of course, I'm more so saying, can he consistently throw for multiple touchdown passes a game? Can he throw for 2 a game? If he can, he's fantasy relevant. If not, it's going to be rough owning Will Levis in an offense that doesn't already look promising. But who knows? I would go out there and at the very minimum, have Will Levis at the end of your bench because who knows? I guess come fantasy playoff time, he might be a spot start option. But at the wide receiver position, Jahan Dotson, Tank Dell, 2 guys owned in 51 and 49% of leagues. 2 guys that are really, really good. Tank Dell, again, happy belated birthday. Jahan Dotson had his resurgence of a game, kind of the game we were hoping for coming into the season. But both those guys, very easy pickups if they're still on waivers in your league. Definitely at least worth the last roster spot on your roster. But Brandin Cooks and Rashid Shaheed here. Those are the 2 guys that I would be looking at in most leagues, as Brandin Cooks has had 2 back-to-back really good weeks before the bye week and then after the bye week. And that's the key for me, is that it wasn't just a 1-week wonder. It looks like this team is going to be relying on Brandin Cooks a little bit more for the remainder of the season. However, limit your expectations. I think he could be a solid, 8 to 12 point guy on a week-to-week basis. However, this is a guy that also has his only 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. So, of course, that always boosts fantasy production. Just limit your expectations, but, hey, I think he's definitely worth a roster spot. Again, over maybe a third-string tight end that you have on your roster, maybe like a guy like Luke Musgrave. Go ahead and drop Musgrave at this point in the season. Go ahead and pick a guy up like Brandin Cooks to at least stash at the end of your bench. Again, if anything happens to CeeDee Lamb, Brandin Cooks looks like a fantasy-relevant receiver. Rashid Shaheed. Again, this is going to be the guy that all your league mates run to. They might spend a lot of their fab money on, and rightfully so. This is a guy that had 25 points last week, and the average fantasy player is going to look at that and be like, hey, that is what I need on my team to start. However, his production came on 3 receptions. This is a guy that is a Marquise Goodwin special kind of player. He's going to be a field stretcher for New Orleans. He's going to run those streaks, those posts, those deep bombs. And it just so happened that he got the ball more often than not last week, as he had like 3 receptions, but over 150 yards, of course, a touchdown or 2. Again, 25 points. Amazing day statistically from Shaheed. But again, he only had like 3 catches on the day, and all of them were deep bombs. So just limit your expectations. Again, this could just be a Marquise Goodwin kind of situation where it just so happened, more so than not, he ended up with the ball on those deep plays. Marvin Mims is a guy I want to highlight here as, again, he's in a Denver offense, and this Denver offense looked better last week here against Kansas City. If Marvin Mims can get more involved towards the tail end of the season, this is a deeper league. So if you're in a 16, 18-teamer, Marvin Mims is a guy I would definitely roster at this point, maybe even a 14-teamer league at this point in the season. Finishing off here at the tight end position, Trey McBride. A breakout game is one way to put it. And we've seen that in the history of the NFL where these tight ends typically take about 1.5 years to break out. Very rare you see a guy like Sam Laporta be so successful early on in his career. Hey, but I guess right situation, and maybe Sam Laporta is just him. That could be what it is. But Trey McBride, this is a guy that has breakout game. There is going to be a quarterback change here coming up next week. They said, the coach said that it's either going to be Kyler Murray against the Browns, or it's going to be Clayton Tune. If it's Clayton Tune, that is music to our ears. Young quarterbacks love to get the ball out quick and efficiently. The best way to do that is to the running back position and to the tight end position. So if it's Clayton Tune, which I think it will be, Trey McBride is going to be a solid option going forward. But shout out to Josh Dobbs, though. Shout out to Josh Dobbs. I think he revitalized his career despite not winning a lot of games. I think he's definitely going to have a job in the NFL for years and years to come. So shout out to Josh Dobbs. But Taysom Hill, the guy that I hate in fantasy football just because he just takes away fantasy points from all the players we actually want to start on a week-to-week basis. Guys like Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. This is a guy that stole 2 touchdowns last week. But, hey, Taysom Hill, I mean, you could start him at tight end, and this is a guy that throws the ball, he runs the ball, he kicks the ball, punts the ball. Taysom Hill does about everything but refill the water on the New Orleans Saints. But if you need a tight end option, he could be a start there on a week-to-week basis. Logan Thomas and Chig Okonkwo, these are situations that I talked about earlier. With the Washington offense, they look better than ever. They're a high-powered passing offense most of the time, and you just want a piece of that offense. Jonnu Smith is a guy that is falling off a little bit, but he's a very safe option. And Chig Okonkwo, again, I love the player. And with Will Levis now at the quarterback, it looks like this team can pass the ball more than 5 yards down the field. If that is the case, I love the talent and the player of Chig Okonkwo. He really reminds me of a guy like David Njoku, so go Browns. But Chig Okonkwo, if this is an offense that can open up a little bit more, he's an interesting option going forward, maybe a streamer option on a spot star basis. But that's going to do it for today's video. Again, week 9, 9 weeks into this, and we're not slowing down. Again, I want to thank you for 1,000 subscribers on the channel. You guys don't know how much that means to me. But again, the grind doesn't stop. 4 days a week. We don't miss days around here. And who knows, we might even extend to 5 days here coming up pretty soon. But without further ado, this is the Nolly Podcast. It's Owen. I'll see you guys tomorrow for some week 9 predictions.